Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to episode 5 of Aimbot, the weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things video games, and I'm your host, Kaif Pape. Now, it's been a long break, too long. It's been 1 month to be precise, and that shouldn't be happening, right? I definitely need to be more consistent, and I will be. However, the few of you who actually listen to this podcast who know me personally know that in addition to working a full-time job, I'm also going to school and recently trying to grow my small YouTube channel. So I had a bunch of exams recently that took precedence to everything else that was going on in my life. And unfortunately, the podcast recordings had to be paused. Now, I figured out a way around that. So even if, eventually when I'm swamped again with exams and deadlines and new projects in work and stuff like that, I will, if needs be, pre-record some podcasts. So whenever I have time, some podcasts might be pre-recorded, or it just means being a bit more disciplined and getting up early in the morning with a cup of coffee and really putting pen to paper to get this thing out, because I really do enjoy it, and I promise it will be back to the regular weekly schedule. Even if I've said it before, it will be back to the regular weekly schedule going forward, right? So again, sorry about the long break. Surprisingly though, persons have actually been calling me and asking me what's up with the podcast, when is the next episode, which is really good because I didn't really expect anybody initially when I put this out to actually be that interested in it, and I'd probably expect like about 10 listeners or so, and it's actually doing even better on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/kaifpape. I also upload the podcast there at a later date, and like the recent one got over 100 views, which just sitting down listening to one guy ramble, that's perfect for me. So I'm happy with that. So let's get into this week's episode. So I'll be discussing the future of Xbox and PS5 as it relates to exclusives. So Microsoft has recognized their failure of the last generation when it comes on to not having exclusives, right? They had a severe lack of exclusives, and the reason it's apparent that they've recognized this is because they've been going all out to acquire studios, right? Previously, third-party studios, some of which are now owned by Microsoft, which includes like the biggest to date, Bethesda, which they acquired for like, I think it was 7 billion or 4 billion, so upwards of 4 billion. So they are putting a lot of money into buying studios, proven studios at that, not just small studios that are coming up out of the blue. Proven studios to provide them with exclusive content, because that is the major thing that Sony has over their heads, right? Sony, you can always go to Sony to get exclusive games like the Uncharted series, God of War, Horizon. There are so many that I can't name all of them, like Ratchet and Clank, tons of them, and Spider-Man recently. But besides Halo, there's absolutely nothing exclusive to Halo and Forza. There's nothing else exclusive to Xbox. And even if you own a PC, there really aren't any exclusives, because all Xbox games come to Microsoft's platform anyway. So Microsoft has been shelling out the bank to try and acquire these studios, and the latest rumored studio that they're attempting to acquire is Square Enix and even EA. So that's a rumor. I'm not sure how much truth there is to that rumor, because it would be really expensive to acquire Square. it would probably be more expensive than what they paid for Bethesda, and certainly for EA it will be more expensive. But acquiring a company such as Square would really diversify their portfolio in terms of what they can offer for games, because I particularly, besides Skyrim, I don't really like Bethesda games. They're way too buggy. Square, on the other hand, produces some of my favorite games like the Final Fantasy series. So that would be a huge win for them if they could acquire Square. However, I really don't see it happening. And EA is just a cash cow. So if you want FIFA, Madden, stuff like that, you'd go to EA, and it's the same game they produce every year. They just add a different date to it, and people still buy it, and people spend money on the slot machine gambling loot box system that EA has. So it might be a sizable investment for Microsoft if they have that lump sum of money to dump, but they will see returns in no time if they can acquire those two studios. But Microsoft has the money. They might not have that much money to spend on acquiring those two studios, but they do have the money. Sony, on the other hand, does not have as much money as Microsoft. So what does this mean for Sony? Does Sony really need to acquire any more studios? Can their current studios from the batch of first-party developers that they have now, can't they just continue to produce high-quality AAA exclusive games? I mean, I personally believe they can. We've got Guerrilla, which is Killzone before they really struck gold with Horizon. They've got unique, very niche studios now with Kojima Productions. They've got Sony Bend, Sony Santa Monica. There are a ton of Sony studios, and from Spider-Man to God of War to Death Stranding, there will always be something there that satisfies your need, right? There's Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo 7 is coming out if you're like a driving enthusiast. There's always something there for you, for being a Sony fan, right? I haven't even mentioned Naughty Dog and the Last of Us or the Uncharted series, because I'm sure they have something in the works as well. So in my mind, they are pretty much safe. But if Microsoft acquires all these third-party studios, and then the games that they were developing suddenly becomes exclusive to Xbox, that can pose a problem. I can see that being a problem, because I can see where persons who are used to playing like Final Fantasy or the Elder Scrolls series, you have a lot of dedicated fans for those games, and I can see them potentially jumping ship if they can no longer play them on Sony's console. Now, I'm not sure how everything will work out, because Bethesda was actually working on at least one exclusive for Sony prior to the acquisition, so I don't know if they'll just still pump that out to Sony, and then everything afterwards it's based on a contract, or it's either exclusive to Xbox. Nobody knows for now, but that's what Microsoft is up to, and we are not quite sure what Sony is up to. Now, I would not have any problems with Sony acquiring a studio as long as it's a studio that produces some form of quality. So like THQ and those lame studios, I wouldn't be impressed if Sony went out to acquire them. But it doesn't even have to be a big studio. If you are a small, almost indie studio, and you have a proven track record of producing games that persons want to play, that are reviewed well, both critically and from the gameplay, the persons playing the games themselves, then I'm all in for that. But as it stands, I'm not worried as a PlayStation owner and player. I'm not worried, and if anything, this will drive Sony, and this will be more competition for Sony. So if indeed Microsoft can get their act together, start putting out some quality exclusives, it will keep Sony from putting out the same stale stuff, and they'll have to reinvent themselves, similarly to what they did with the God of War reboot. And they'll have to always be on their P's and Q's, right? Because once you're a monopoly, in a sense, right now, Sony is basically a monopoly as it relates to exclusives. Once you're a monopoly, eventually, your creativity dies down because there's no competition to push you to make greater stuff. And that's pretty much it for that section. But speaking of Sony exclusives, Kena, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but Kena Bridge of Spirits is set to release next month on PS5. It looks stunning. Like, I don't know much about the gameplay besides the few trailers that have been released, but the world, environment, and character detail is really something to behold. It would look like a Pixar movie, not as, I wouldn't say it is as CG as something like Ratchet and Clank, but it is extremely clean. It's next gen. Like, looking at it, you wouldn't even confuse it for a current gen game. Well, I guess we are in next gen now, so you wouldn't confuse it with a last gen game. It looks really good. I'm just hoping that it also plays well and that it reviews well, so that can be another go-to game for Sony to continue to push out, probably Kena 2 or 3 or whatever. But it looks good, and that's something new for PS5 players to be able to experience next month. As for Microsoft, there's not much word on arrival date for any exclusives, but they've recently announced their AI and Gaming Summit, which is to be held on February 23rd and also the 24th, this February. So in a week or two, we will be seeing exactly what Microsoft has been up to. I'm anticipating that we get some more news on Halo Infinite, and I'm anticipating big things from them, regardless of what is actually revealed. So that's set for the 23rd, going into the 24th. Also for Microsoft, Metro Exodus is set to get a next-gen patch any day now, and it will include 4K 60 with ray tracing on Series X and 1080p on Series S. And it will come with faster loading times across both consoles and Xbox Smart Delivery. All good stuff. It's still an old game, so I'm not really excited. If you want to know what this will look like, just go online and check out any coverage of the PC version with all the settings cranked up to max. It actually looks really good, and they do a bunch of cool stuff with ray traced shadows that really fill out the world and bring some more depth to the world itself. But honestly, I am really, really waiting for Microsoft to just give us something, because to date there hasn't been anything. If you bought a Series X or a Series S and you've been waiting, you're still waiting. And it's not even like the Series X is outperforming the PS5, despite it being listed as the most powerful console ever developed. In most cases, the PS5 is actually beating it out. I've actually discussed that in a previous version of the podcast. I won't go too far into it. But suffice to say, what's really going on for Microsoft? If you're a gamer, the best thing that you can actually get excited about now as a Microsoft fan is Game Pass. That's probably one of the best deals right now in gaming. You play like little to nothing for the service and you get access to a ton of games. But again, all these games are old, and the games that are shipped directly to Game Pass games, they're not necessarily that AAA. So you'll play them and you'll have fun, but it's not something that you're going to be super excited about going home to play. It's a nice catalog of games, and the quantity, and there's a lot of quality in there as well, don't get me wrong. It's just quality that we've all already experienced if you're a gamer and you've played majority of those games already. So, but if you're not someone who buys a lot of games, or if you're not somebody who typically even plays a lot of games, you might just play a few games. If you have Game Pass, then it's a great excuse, for lack of a better word, for you to get invested in some games that may have passed you by, and you might probably stumble across a hidden gem here or there. So it's great content, it's great value, and I love the push that Microsoft did for Game Pass. I just want them to put that same amount of energy into exclusives, especially when you market your console as being the most powerful console ever developed. I want to see what that power can produce. Certainly it isn't Halo, because that looks like garbage. That looks worse than last-gen games, some last-gen games. So let's see something that can truly blow our minds and say, all right, this is it. Sony, you finally have some form of, you finally have a contender in the exclusive market, right? I mean, I can comfortably name out a game that's being released next month and numerous other games being released this year, like Ratchet and Clank, and God of War, which is set to release this year, but I'm not sure if it will. But calendar date, it is put down for this year. But I can't, and that's for Sony, but I can't really do that for Microsoft. So let's see exactly what they have up their sleeves. Hopefully it is something amazing. And for them to call a summit, right? It's AI and gaming, but to even include gaming in there at all, it must mean that you have something to show. You won't be holding a summit and you have like one fucking game and say, oh, here's some more fucking shitty ass looking Halo or whatever, right? Or more or expansion pack for Forza Horizon or something like that. We want to see something new. I'm excited to see something new from them. So definitely looking forward to the 23rd. Hopefully I'm not even caught up with work or school at the time, so I can just watch the stream and give a reaction pretty soon afterwards. So you can anticipate that the next Aimbot podcast will basically be me going over what was presented in the summit, right? In Microsoft's summit. So mark your calendars. The next podcast will be in a week, or probably a week and a couple of days, depending on if this thing comes out on time. But that's pretty much it for Sony and Microsoft. In other news, I've hopped back on Twitter. So if you're interested in following me on Twitter, you can follow me at twitter.com/KaifPape. All my pages, my YouTube channel, my email address is just first name, last name, so Kaif Pape. I know sadly a lot of you aren't afforded the luxury of just being able to get your name, first name, last name on any platform, but I have a pretty weird name, so I'm able to do that. So if you want to see what I'm up to, follow me on Twitter at Kaif Pape, twitter.com/KaifPape. Just to let you know, I will not follow you back because I don't follow anybody on social media. Actually, maybe that will change. We'll see. But if I ever follow somebody back, it certainly won't be an instantaneous follow back. And I don't really care about followers. But for the few of you who are actually genuinely interested in the topics that I'm also interested in, you will get a lot of value out of seeing what I post on Twitter or what I retweet from certain key developers and topics that I subscribe to. Also, go ahead and check out the YouTube channel. It's primarily Path of Exile content. It's also one of the reasons, like I said before, that this episode of the podcast has been delayed. I am trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so I would greatly appreciate just a sub. You don't have to actually go through and watch anything and like any videos, unless, of course, you are interested in the videos and gaming is something that you actually like. But otherwise, from that, you can just go to youtube.com/KaifPape and give me a subscribe, right? So at 1,000 subscribers and a certain amount of watch time hours, which I'm not worried about because I'm on track to hit that. But at 1,000 subscribers, I can finally be able to monetize the channel and actually put out some better content and do some more upgrades. And that has been basically what I've been up to. In terms of gaming, it's still pretty much just Path of Exile. I am set to return to the Call of Duty scene because Call of Duty Activision recently banned over 60,000 accounts, and then there was a second wave of bans that happened. So hopefully when I jump back in, there won't be as many cheaters, because that's the primary reason that I stopped playing that game. It was plagued with cheaters every single fucking match. You jump in, you just get lasered from across the map from some random fucking cheater, right? So hopefully all of that shit is fixed, and I can jump back into some Call of Duty. And to any of you listening, if you play Warzone, you can leave a comment or send me a message somewhere, YouTube, Gmail, wherever, and let me know your tag, and we can jump in and play a few games together. But that's it for me. Thanks for listening to me ramble yet again, and I look forward to next week when I'm able to share some more opinions with you guys on the Aimbot podcast. Thanks, cheers, continue gaming everyone.